So my name is Jay Garvey, and I'm one of the coordinators of family relations here at Milton Hershey School. And what we're going to be talking about today is how to be a Spartan sponsor. What does that mean? And basically what we are hoping to accomplish is to provide you with some skills, some tools, some ideas, some things that you maybe never thought of, or maybe you have, and how you can support your students while they're here and you're at home. Several years ago, I had the idea that, we really have always, as a school, tried to empower you as parents and as families and give you tools and strategies on how to help support your kids. And we've been in existence for over 100 years, and we've worked with thousands and thousands of families. But I said, you know what? Really who we need to talk to are the kids. Let's get advice from them. If they could talk to their families and say, hey, this is what I need from you. This is what I don't need from you while I'm here. So what we're going to be talking about today is kind of been developed over the years, but a lot of it comes directly from kids. Some of it has come from these workshops where we've had families say, hey, here's something we've tried that really works. So please, this is meant to be interactive. If you see something or you hear something and say, hey, we've done that, but we've done it a little bit different, please. The purpose of this is to try and gather as much information, and then again, we're going to try and continue to spread it with all of our families. So the purpose of today really is to support your Spartan as they work towards their dreams. And we all know that we're all at Milton Hershey School for the same reason, right? The students are here for a reason, you as a family have brought them here for a reason, and we as a school are here for a reason. And that same reason is for your children to go on to do great things and to have success and to achieve their dreams. I always like to say on enrollment day that kids need to understand when their families bring them to enrollment day, what they're doing is they're taking away all of their excuses. They're all gone. No more excuses why you can't achieve all of your dreams. Okay? So we're going to take a look at it today. And I want to kind of frame the presentation in our sacred values. Here's a pop quiz. Does anybody know the 4 sacred values of our school? Yes? Good. Commitment to mission, positive spirit, mutual respect, and what was the 4th one? Commitment to mission, positive spirit, mutual respect, and integrity. Right. So we're going to kind of frame everything in those 4. And those are sacred values that we really hold very near and dear to our hearts here. And we try to frame everything we do within those 4 areas. So integrity, what does that mean? That means really, at the core of it, being honest. And from a Spartan sponsor standpoint, that means really being honest with your child and sometimes with ourselves, right? And so we always ask that. Be honest with your children. Be honest what you want, what you expect. And we'll talk a lot about expectations a little bit later, but just really being honest. Because what happens when we're not honest? Somewhere along the line, the truth is going to come out, right? We want to address those issues initially, because the longer we put it off, what happens? Gets a lot more difficult, and we'll talk more about that. Commitment to mission. We are very committed, and I already talked about the mission, helping your children become successful. But really a commitment. Hopefully, you guys have the sense that we are committed to your children, not only through graduation here, right, but we call it graduate success. They can earn that scholarship. They can go on to post-secondary education. All those things, we are committed to support them well past the graduation day here. What we have always asked of our families, and hopefully you've made that commitment, is from day one, be committed to that same process. We talk about on enrollment day, be committed to them coming till graduation. If you say go and try it, they will come and try it. But you need to say you need to graduate from Milton Hershey School, no matter how long that takes. I like this term. I don't know if any of you ever heard of a video that actually turned into a book. It was very, very popular several years ago, called The Last Lecture. The Last Lecture, the man's name was Randy Pausch, and he was a professor, I think, at Carnegie Mellon University. And he gave a lecture. At Carnegie Mellon, when a professor is getting ready to retire, they deliver what they call their last lecture. And they can invite anybody, and they can talk about anything. And I think he was a professor of computer engineering. Well, his last lecture was actually about how to enjoy and get the most out of life. Because you see, Randy Pausch had terminal cancer, and he knew he was dying. So he gave this lecture, and I encourage you to go out and find it on YouTube or read the book. But one of the things he talks about is brick walls, that we are going to come up against brick walls in our lives. And you can use whatever metaphor you want, brick walls, hurdles, whatever. But he said, brick walls are very, very important for the reason of a brick wall helps us to understand how important what's on the other side is to us. How bad do we want what's on the other side of that brick wall? Because think about it, if you really, really want what's on the side of that other side of that brick wall, what are you going to do? You're going to find a way over that brick wall, around it, or if you need to, through it, right? You're going to encounter brick walls at Milton Hershey School, whether it's homesickness, whether it's academic struggles, whether it's being able to get back and forth for family weekend, whether it's, I mean, we can go on, but there's going to be a lot of brick walls. But those brick walls, don't look at those as something to kind of dissuade you about your commitment to Milton Hershey School. But they are really there to say, is this really, really what I'm hoping for? Is the end result of where we're going to be with your child, your student, is that important to me that no matter what tough times come down the road, we're going to get through that? So again, as you hit those brick walls, you know, they're going to teach you something. You know, mutual respect. Obviously, we all, no matter if it's at Milton Hershey School or anywhere else, respect is a very big thing. And you know, mutual respect means that it's a two-way street, right? You know, we always know that no matter what, we can learn lessons. But as adults, sometimes we have to realize, can we teach the right lesson in the moment? Especially when it comes to respect. You know, we teach respect, we ask for respect here at Milton Hershey School, and we display respect. And many times that can be a very difficult thing, right? When things are tough. But again, there's a lesson to be learned in all situations. And if anything, we say, let's make sure we are approaching everything with respect for ourselves and for others. And there's a lot of lessons to be taught there to our kids. And then lastly, positive spirit, which I believe is probably the most important thing, right? I'm sure by now most of you have heard of a young alumnus here at Milton Hershey School by the name of Gary Gilliam. Gary Gilliam graduated from Milton Hershey School in 2009. Okay, and he is currently a member of the Seattle Seahawks. He was just here not too long ago. We had a great assembly. And one of the things he talked about, and actually it was his house father that talked about, was, you know, at an early age, Gary came in 7th grade. A couple years later, though, he realized that he needed to accept being at Milton Hershey School. You know, he didn't like it at first, and he struggled with it, but once he accepted that this is where his mother wanted him to be and that she wanted him to graduate from him, he says that his attitude changed instantly. Once he accepted why he was here, his attitude changed. And then once you accept that you're here, embrace it. And that means I'm here. I'm getting involved. I am getting everything out of Milton Hershey School that I can. I am going to do things, I am going to learn things, and I am going to be something. So, positive spirit, and we'll talk a lot about that later. Accept you're at Milton Hershey School. Accept that Milton Hershey School is now a part of your family's life, and let's embrace it. There's a lot here, folks. We can do amazing, amazing things. You know, I always like to say Milton Hershey School is kind of like a three-legged stool. If you imagine a three-legged stool, okay? Anybody, I put a three-legged stool up here, I'm sure anybody would be willing to come up and sit on it. But what happens if you take one leg away from a three-legged stool? Any of them, what's going to happen? It's going to fall over. You cannot sit on a two-legged stool, right? Milton Hershey School essentially is a three-legged stool. There's three parts that you need to have to support. We need you as the families, we need us as the school, but probably most importantly, we need, who's that third leg? The student. They're the student. Okay, and we'll talk about that. So let's talk about integrity. You know, taking on the tough subjects. There's a lot of tough subjects when you're working with kids, right? And they're gonna, as they get older, more and more tough subjects are gonna come. You know, one of the things I read in a book one time that I thought was very, very profound and very, very smart was, you know, when you're coming into a conversation with someone, don't come into that conversation or a discussion with the answer. Come in looking to find the answer. Now, you might very well have it from the get-go, but if I enter a conversation with you and I think I have the answer and you think you have the answer, we're going to spend the whole conversation doing what? Trying to convince each other that my answer is better than yours. But if you come in thinking, you know what, I've got some pretty good ideas, I think I know how this should work, I think I have the answer, but I'm willing to hear what the other side says, you're going to get to the answer. And again, very might well that you had it all along. But when you approach especially tough topics, come in thinking, you know, I don't have all the answers, but I certainly want to find out. Homesickness. This is certainly a tough topic. Hopefully the discussions around homesickness for you and your child started even before you showed up on enrollment day. Hopefully when you got your enrollment packet, there was a DVD in there. We created that DVD just to show you how much we know and are aware of homesickness. It's a very real thing, specifically here at Milton Hershey School. Homesickness is very real to our pre-K kids as it is to our seniors. Homesickness is very real to the student who just enrolled, to the student who's been here 8 years. Homesickness is something that there's no medicine for. There's no quick solution, and it is going to affect everybody differently. But one thing all the experts and all the research tell you about homesickness is the number one thing you need to do with homesickness is do what? Talk about it. You can't brush it aside. You need to talk about it. You need to be aware of it. You need to recognize it, and you need to develop your own way to get over it. For some, maybe talking to home on a regular basis helps with homesickness. Some, that might make it worse. Some might need to see you more regularly. Some, that might make it worse. But homesickness, talk about it. Touch base with your kids. And please, please don't assume just because they've been here for a long time, they're no longer homesick. We see kids who have been here 8, 9 years and all of a sudden they go home for Christmas break for 2 weeks. Guess what? They come back here, homesick all over again. Okay? So please don't ever think that homesickness is going to go away. One of the things that we try and say from day one, and hopefully everybody is on board with this, is that the relationship that you as families have, specifically with house parents, but more so with all the Milton Hershey staff, the better relationships that we can have, the more important and the better effect that's going to have on your kids. Your relationship with your child's house parents or their TL staff is going to be the single most important thing that you can do to support them here. That you have a positive working relationship. Now, I will tell you, many of our kids, guess what? They don't want you on the same page, right? It's kind of like at home. They don't want mom and dad or whoever's home, they don't want you on the same page, because if you're not on the same page, there's a lot more gray area. But if they know that you have a united front, it's going to make you and the house parents much more capable to help those students. And hopefully that makes sense. This was something that I really never even thought of until the students shared this with me, is they said, a really tough topic for students here, and a really thing that makes it difficult sometimes to be here, is when they hear about issues back home that they can't do anything about. And I had a high school girl share this with me. She said, it's really hard when I get on the phone with my mom and she starts complaining about whether it was a sibling or someone back home that's doing stuff, and she felt very, very helpless. She's like, I can't do anything about it. That made her feel guilty about being here, and it made it harder to be here and away from home. So as you're talking to kids, make sure you're thinking about, am I unloading things on them that they can't do anything about? It makes them feel a little bit helpless, and then they're going to start worrying about you. That's another thing. As much as you worry about your kids while they're here, guess what? They are worrying about you back home. All right, so just think about that. When you're sharing things that are going back home, not saying you need to keep things from them, but just think about, how is this going to impact them? And I just kind of touched on this, guilt. Believe it or not, sometimes our kids, many times our kids that are here at Milton Hershey School, they often find themselves feeling guilty about being here. They feel guilty sometimes about all these things they get to do, all these things they have to have. And so they need to hear from you. It's okay to be here. Not only sometimes do you need to let them know it's okay to be here, but here's the thing, you sometimes might even need to give them permission to like it here. Here's a big one. Moms, sometimes you might need to let your kids know it's okay for them to like their house mom. It's okay for them to really like her cooking. Okay? They need your permission because they will feel guilty. A quick story I want to share about is, a young man not too long ago I had the fortune of working with, great kid, never had any kind of behavior issues. One night at dinner, he just had a kind of an anger tantrum. It was a high school kid, really out of character. It was a very cold winter night. And he just was so out of character. He was so angry, he was snapping at everybody. And when I got to talk to him, one of the things that he shared was it was a very cold night, and here he was in the student home having a nice hot meal. And he got such an overwhelming sense of guilt because he knew that he was in a safe place, in a warm building, eating a hot meal, and he was thinking about his brother and sister back home who he knew did not have that in his family. So he had huge waves of guilt over him. So again, let them know that it's okay to be here. Let them know that it's okay to like it, okay? The other thing is, sometimes we need to watch our own perceptions, not only about Milton Hershey School, but about school in general. What you think of the school, what you think of the staff, what you think of school in general is going to weigh heavily on them. If you talk about, well, I didn't like high school, math is useless, it's really going to be hard for them to invest. So always think and run a filter through, where am I in this? What am I thinking? How are my own perceptions affecting what I am saying and sharing with my children? It's more of a self-awareness thing. Very, very important. So that's integrity. Anybody want to share? We miss anything? Yes?
Jay, can I add something about the guilt issue?
The guilt issue, yes.
One of the things that I try to do with Eden and Lane is remind them that it's okay if they don't want to come home for a visit, because there are times where they're doing things, especially Lane, with Laureldale, where it'll be like, wow, I really want to take you out for a visit. And he'll be like, well, and he'll be like, oh, do you have something cool planned with your house? Well, yeah, and it's like, it's okay.
Yeah.
You don't have to come out.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about coming out with me. I understand that.
Yeah.
So you go ahead and have fun. I get off the phone and it's like, Rex, I really want to take him to skateboarding, but that's okay. I don't want to make him feel guilty. So it's okay if they stay there and do the cool things with their house instead of coming out with me.
Yeah, that's a great point. She's talking about how sometimes she needs to let them know it's okay that they would rather stay on campus than go home, whether it's on the weekend or the summer. Or YRE, there's a lot of great stuff going on. So that's an excellent point. Sometimes the kids need to, and we hear about it. Mom, you want to come up for the weekend? Well, he doesn't want to go out with me because the student home's going to laser tag and here, if they're not in high school yet, it's going to be worse in high school because, they might want to hang out with their friends. They want to go to Hershey Park. They want to do this. They want to do that. They get 10 minutes to get on the phone. They're not calling you, Mom, right? They're going to call a friend or girlfriend and stuff. So that's very, very crucial point. Thanks for bringing that up. So again, let's talk about commitment to mission. Again, those brick walls. Let's take those obstacles we're going to encounter and look at it as an opportunity. One of the things, and the kids are so honest if you get them by themselves, right? If you can get a kid by themselves, they're a different kid than if you have them in a group. And we're aware of that. And this is not just at Milton Hershey School, but kids are going to put on a front while they're here that it's not cool to like Milton Hershey School. It's not cool to like school. We really work hard to make that cool for them, and we get there. But lots of times you'll find out that they're putting on a front, but we know the truth. I think if we asked all of our 2,000 kids here, what they really, really think about Milton Hershey School, if I had the opportunity to sit down with them all individually, I think I'm going to get the truth. They know it. They know what this place can do for them. So, as you're talking to them, remind them, this goes back to integrity too, right? Be honest. Those are the kids that do what? Those are those Gary Gilliams that will accept it and embrace it. They're not worried about the front. And we see it. At some point, if your kid's not already there, they'll make the switch where, I'm more concerned about where I'm going to be, and now it is cool to be here. I am appreciative of what I am getting. But many times that we got to get through that front. Here's a big one that the kids said. This is a big one. I don't know if anybody's ever thought of this, but hopefully you'll take advantage of this. Do something for yourselves. It makes it a lot easier for them to be here. When they know that you're going on, I had a parent one time says, it's time to dust off your dreams. Your kids are here, they're safe, they're doing well. If there's something you've been putting off to do for yourself, do it. There's nothing more empowering for a kid when their parent is going off and doing something better for themselves. It's going to push them to do well. I've had kids tell me, well, I got to get on honor roll. Mom went back to school and she's getting A's. Do something for yourself. If there was a job that you were going after, if there was some kind of education, a training, if there's something you wanted to do about going in and getting healthy for yourself, whatever it is you need to do something for yourself. It helps with that guilt. If they know that you're going on to do great things, it's going to push them to go on to do great things. This one's very, very key. Set high expectations for your kid. And this goes from, the expectation is that you're going to graduate. But I expect you to make honor roll. I expect you to make effort and conduct. I expect you to do this, this, and this. If you set an expectation for your child, I have worked with thousands of kids. I've never, ever met a kid that is not capable of living up to and working up to the expectations set before them. But unfortunately, many times what we do as adults, when we come up with a kid that's having a trouble meeting the expectation, what do? We lower that expectation because we don't want to deal with the fallout of them not making it. So we lower that expectation. That is not helping them. They don't have to hit that expectation the first time, but coach them, help them get to it. Don't lower the expectations. They will live up to them. They will live up to them. I've never met a kid that cannot live up to the expectations you set for them. Don't lower it. It's not what they need. Ask the hard questions, specifically of your kids, right? How many of you, when you call your kids, the first question, I do it with my own daughter. How was school today? Good. What'd you learn? Nothing. Right? We ask questions that allow them to answer with one word. Ask specific questions. What are you learning in math right now? What is your last social studies grade? You all have the ability to go in and see all this, folks, through Infinite Campus. There's nothing more empowering for you to look at Infinite Campus. Oh, you didn't do your science homework. Call them up. Why didn't you do your science homework? That's a specific question. That's a tough question. They got to answer it. Ask the hard question. Dig deep. Ask them about, what's going, we tend to ask in very generalizations, right? What's going on in the student home? Nothing. Have you made a friend? Who's your closest friend? Who's a staff member that really you feel is really helping you? Ask very specific questions. Don't let them get away with one-word answers. And sometimes they're not even words. Oh, meh, oh. Those aren't even words. Okay? Here's a big one. This goes back to that mutual respect part. Make sure you hear both sides of the story. Now, I know that none of your children, you that are sitting in here now, I know none of your children would ever stretch the truth. They would never, tell a little bit of a lie, or they would never withhold part of the information. Of course they would. We all do it. They're going to tell you what they want you to hear. Now this is an honesty quiz. How many of your kids know your buttons to press? Right? They know exactly what to tell you and how to tell you something in order to get you to do something, right? Let's be honest, it's all the case. But here's the thing. Before you start to react or before you start to make decisions, make sure you get both sides of the story. Talk to the house parents, talk to the staff member, talk to whoever it is. You make sure you get all the information before you start to make decisions. Because the reality is, you know what they say about the truth, right? How many sides are there to the truth? No, there's three. Three sides to the truth. Yours, mine, and the truth. Because usually it's somewhere in the middle. Here's a great strategy. And I'm sure if you haven't gotten this call, you're going to get this call. The house parents or the teacher is doing this. They're not letting me do this. They're treating me bad and everything. How many of you ever said, okay, put them on the phone? All of our student homes have speakerphones. Get a 3-way phone call. Suddenly, the story might just change a little bit. How many of you ever said, hey, let me talk to your house parent? Oh, no, you don't need to talk to him. Nope, no, you don't need, that's all right, you don't need to talk to him. When your child's telling you don't need to talk to another adult, guess what? You need to talk to that other adult. It goes back to they don't want you on the same page, okay? Make sure you always hear both sides of the story. Now, again, one of the most important things you can do for your child from day one is be committed to them being at Milton Hershey School until they graduate. We say this on enrollment day. Your child, if they think, home is always home, folks. Your family. We are never going to be able to compete with that. Given the option to come home, they will come home. 90% of the time, they will come home at any point. If they think there's a glimmer of hope, they're going to go after it. But you need to be committed to their being here to enrollment. Until graduation, I'm sorry. They will do it. Remember the expectations? They will do it. Now, a great analogy I came across one time, and this is the time of the year that it's perfect. When I do this in July, it makes absolutely no sense. But being at Milton Hershey School is like shoveling your driveway when it snows. How many of you have to shovel your own driveway or a sidewalk or something? Does anybody enjoy shoveling snow? Okay, I'm going to give you my address when we're done and you guys can come. But I don't know about you, but I have a very long driveway. And when you go out there after it snowed 6 inches and you look at that driveway and you know you got to shovel that whole thing, you want to go back inside where it's warm. You do not want to do it. That's kind of like enrollment day at Milton Hershey School, right? Especially if you come in like 2nd or 3rd grade. You look and you're like, oh my gosh, look how far we got to go. But the most important thing to do is put your head down and just start shoveling. Start shoveling. And then when you're ready to take a break, don't look how much more you got to do, but turn around and look to see how much you've done. Many times you're like, man, I can't believe I've done that much. And now you're going to feel empowered to go the rest of the way. But instead of looking back to see what you've accomplished, you look to see how much more you got to do. You're going to be like, oh, that's all I've done. Look how much more I got to do. So when you're at Milton Hershey School, continue to look back on how far you've come. Look at the accomplishments. Look at all the great things that have been accomplished since you've been here. That will help propel you. So the next time you're out shoveling snow, you'll think of me right here on this stage talking about Milton Hershey School. Hopefully we won't have to shovel any more snow. Mutual respect. Okay, number 3 of our 4. It's very hard, but very, very important for us as adults, especially even us here at the school, to value not only successes, but we have to value failure. I don't think anybody disagrees. You can learn a lot from failure. Some people would say you probably learn more failing than you do. There's a great quote. In fact, I used to have a poster in my classroom, Michael Jordan. He talks about, I missed 26,000 shots. I've been given the opportunity to take the game-winning shot 6 times. I've missed it. I've lost X amount of games. All these terrible things. Michael Jordan said, he goes, but because of that, I am a much better player. Okay? So you have to value failure sometimes, and that can be very, very difficult. One of the things the kids always want to make sure that people understand is, they have kind of 2 lives. They have their lives here at Milton Hershey School, and then they have their lives back home. It's called code switching. It's actually a term where they have to be 2 different people sometimes. And sometimes it's difficult. If they're transitioning a lot, if they're going home every weekend, or they have to kind of change who they are. Who they are and who they get to be can vary from home to here. So one thing you'll have to be aware about is there's much more going on their lives here at Milton Hershey School than what's happening in the student home and what's happening in school. I think if you talk to most of our kids, the most important thing they get at Milton Hershey School is the relationships they build with their friends. Activities, sports, clubs. There's so much going on this campus on a regular basis that are outside the student home and outside school. Again, ask those questions. Find out what is keeping them here. They are here. It's not easy. What is keeping them here? There's something that has hooked them into being here, that they are making a connection. Find out what those are. And I just touched about this. They need to juggle those lives back and forth. Encourage them. The other thing is you can also help them with the transition. Now, they're not going to like this, but a thing to help with transitions, when they come home, have them make their beds. Have them do chores. Here's a crazy idea. Maybe they have to still have their bedtime. Right? I know, look, the kids in the front row, they're like, oh no, because what happens when they come home? They're like, woohoo! Yeah, I am not doing a chore. I'm not making my bed, I'm watching TV, and I'm eating chips for every meal. Right? No, please, that does not help the life back and forth. Okay? Because I'll tell you, especially when we have like a 2-week break at Christmas, they come back, we have zombies. Because they've been up all night on those stupid computers, right? They have been FaceTiming 24 hours straight. Help them with those transitions back and forth. Very, very important. I talked about this a little bit earlier. The big thing for a lot of our kids is the siblings, and we're really, really aware of that. Whether their siblings are here on campus or not, we know how important those relationships. Those are their first friends. If they're here in school, it's great. We are going to try everything we do to get them together. Hopefully you understand that can be challenging, specifically if they're in different divisions. As big as we're getting, one of them might live on this side of town, one of them might live on the other side of town. We're going to do everything we can to get those together. But that helps if you can do that as well. But really what's a struggle for a lot of our kids is when they have siblings that maybe couldn't get in, or they didn't want to come, or they're back home. That can be a struggle. If they know that the kid is, their sibling is back home and they're here, it goes to that whole guilt piece. But just be aware that, if your child that's here has siblings, whether they're here or not, again, something to really talk about. Get them to open up about how do they feel about that. It can be a real challenge. Something to really value that some might term as a failure, but really it's not, is summer school. We don't like to use the term remediation. We like to use the term acceleration. We're not trying to go back and redo what maybe was not done. We're trying to bring them up to speed to where they need to be. Unfortunately, many of our kids, when they come to us, they're a little behind, and we do everything we can to empower them and get them up to speed academically. So if you have not, you might at some point, you probably might even start getting those calls now. We try to communicate as early as possible. It's very possible we're going to ask your child to be here for some of the summer for summer school. Please, don't take that as a failure. Don't take that as a negative. That just means, ultimately that's why you brought your children here, right? We just feel that they're going to need a little bit more extra. There's a study out there, I believe it was through Stanford. It did a study on just maximizing learning time. And what they did, so they did all this research, and what they found was if you take a child from anywhere in this country, any socioeconomic class, any school, anywhere, and you look at their learning rate, what they found was when a child is in a classroom seat learning in an active school environment, no matter where they come from, they will learn at the same rate. The gaps that we all hear about between kids, those gaps occur when they're not in school. Maybe they're not in school as much, so if there's a lot of high absenteeism, or there's no extra school programs, those gaps occur when they're away from school. And maybe because there's no resources in the home, there's no books, there's no libraries, there's nobody sitting down helping them with homework, there's nobody sitting down reading with them. Those gaps form when they're outside the classroom, okay? So what we also found is, and here's where it gets kind of scary. What they found was if you take a kid from the time they are born until they're 18, okay, 91% of all of their minutes are spent outside the classroom. They're only in school 9% of the time. 9% they're achieving at the same level. 91% is where those gaps can form. That's a big opportunity for gaps to occur in education. They said, you know what, let's even take a look at it a different way. They got to sleep 8 hours and they don't start school till kindergarten. So let's look from the age of 5 until 18, waking hours. And they still found 70% of the time they were outside of a classroom. But folks, this is one of the great things about Milton Hershey School. Our learning time, it doesn't stop, right? We have your kids 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365. We do schooling on the weekends, before school, after school, summer. We are maximizing learning time for your kids. They are going to get more education here than anywhere else. So if a teacher, if a staff member calls and says, hey, I'd like, it happens on family weekend, right? This morning there was an SAT prep class. That might hurt a little bit. You can't spend Saturday morning on family weekend with your child. But guess what? They're in an SAT prep class, getting maximized education time. Don't look at it as a failure. It's a success. Does that make sense? Okay, great. And obviously we know that sometimes it's hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel. There's going to be tough times. There might be a blip in the road. There might be a failed test. There might be, not such a great report card. It's hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel, especially for the younger ones. 10 years, that seems like forever. But come on, as adults, let's be honest, right? How many of us it feels like, 20 years ago was yesterday. And that light at the end of the tunnel, anybody here have a senior this year? Okay. If you can find someone that has a senior, talk to them. Our seniors, we're in the home stretch. They just hit 100 days to graduation yesterday. That light is like the sun. And suddenly now, it's a little bit scary for some of them. It's kind of like, remember the movie Poltergeist? Don't go into the light. They're a little afraid of that because, graduating from Milton Hershey School can be a scary thing for some kids. Who knows what's on the other side? But that light is going to start coming real fast. This next is a statement that I got from a young lady when I was putting together this presentation that was probably one of the most profound things I've ever heard a kid say at Milton Hershey School. And basically we're talking about all the great opportunities we had here. And what she said, it is a lot easier to hear about the opportunities at Milton Hershey School from our families because they know what opportunities or lack of opportunities we had at home. So Mr. Garvey can get up here and say, hey, this is a great opportunity. Look at all the things you get to do. Much better opportunity than what you had back home. That kid's thinking, he don't know me. He doesn't know what I had back home. He doesn't know what opportunities I had or did not have back home. And that's true. That is honest. But guess what? You do. You all know what they have, where they're coming from, what they could do, what they could not do. So when you say what a great opportunity Milton Hershey School is, they're going to believe it. Much more than if I was to say it as a staff member. So when you're talking about opportunities, it's going to carry much more weight than if I were. Positive spirit. Attitude is everything, right? Attitude is everything. If there's one thing I would ask that you can help encourage your kids, it's just their attitude. Positive attitude. It's not always easy. But, there's all kinds of research out there that show, positive attitude can affect the way you work, the way you live, how healthy you are, your attitude toward things. We tell kids all the time, you can't impact what's going to happen to you, but how you react to it, you are total control of it. So what can you do to help support the kids? What are some just basic things? Number one, send mail. Might seem simple, but our kids love to get mail. I hear house parents talking about the kids, they fight to see whoever gets to run down to the mailbox to get the mail. Now, I will tell one little personal note here when it comes to mail. Be very, very careful, and you'll know your kids better. A couple years ago, my daughter decided she wanted to go to summer camp. She was a little young. We were a little hesitant to send her off to summer camp. It was like a sleepaway camp for a week. But we said, okay, we knew the camp director, so we'll take a chance, we'll send her a little early. And I thought, okay. I said, I got this great idea. I am going to send a letter every day to her, but I'm going to send this, like she was going to go on Saturday. I said, I'm going to put her first one in the mail on Tuesday, so the first day of camp, she was going to get a letter from me. Now, at that same time, we had just gotten a new puppy, so I'm like, I took a picture of her and the puppy, I put it in the card and sent this card off and everything. Well, like day 2, day 3 of the camp, we get a call from the camp director and he said, Grace is really struggling with homesickness. She's she's not eating well, she's not doing good. And I'm going to be very honest here and call myself a huge hypocrite because I just got done telling you to be committed to enrollment and to set high expectations. But I caved and I went and got my daughter because I don't want my baby crying and being homesick. So I get her in the car and I said, Grace, you were looking so forward to camp. You were so excited. You wanted this. This was great. What happened? How come? She goes, well, I was doing great. I was having a great time until I got your card. And I saw the picture of our dog and me, and it just made me miss. And I was like, oh, I'm such an idiot. If she had never gotten that first card, it never would have happened. So my only point in telling you that story is your kids. If sending them a card every day is going to help, great. If sending them a card every day is going to make them homesick, don't do it. Maybe every day. Or here's another thing. Talk to friends and family, have them send stuff. Don't put that responsibility on your own. I know one lady, she had her whole church send cards to her kid. Kid got a card every day for months. Come to events when you can. And here's a key. If you can't come, don't just call afterwards, call before. And the kids told me this. They said, when I talk to my family about the event that's coming up, it's kind of like they're going to be there with me. after it's kind of like there's a little bit of a letdown after events. And that's when, hey, how was it? Well, but if you talk to them, if you can't be there, talk to them about, hey, I know you got that game tomorrow. I know you have that performance tonight. I am so proud of you. I'm looking for you. I'll be praying for you. I'll be thinking about you. They say it's kind of like as close to having you there as possible. Don't just call afterwards. Be positive. Again, if you're expecting them to have a positive spirit, you're going to have it. I have this rule I call the 3 before 1 rule that I'm going to ask some of you to use, because sometimes I get calls from parents where they're thinking about withdrawing their kids or they're having a hard time. I always encourage them to try my 3 before 1 rule. When your child calls you, the rule needs to be they need to share 3 good things that happened to them that day before they can give you 1 complaint. And it could be as much as, well, we had pizza for lunch. That's 1 good thing. We didn't have any tests today. That's 2 good things. Because what happens is after usually when they're done with their 3 things, guess what? They forgot what they're complaining about. Or suddenly it's not that big of a deal. Because we know it's hard on you when they call and they complain and they say, take me out, I want to be out, this place is terrible, why'd you do this to me? Nope, I need 3 good things. And sometimes it might take some work on their part to find those 3 things, but they can identify 3 good things that happened to them that day. Okay? Encourage them. Encourage them as much as possible. They need you to encourage them. We're going to do it here, but they need to hear from you. Even if it's a quick note, a call, whatever. Hey, I'm so proud of you. Right? Next one, tell them how proud you are. Believe it or not, no matter what age a kid is, they want to hear that their family is proud of them. That's the most powerful thing they can hear. They might not let you know that, and they might get angry at you for embarrassing them, but they do deep inside. That is how we are wired. We want people to be proud of us. Let your kids know that you're proud of them. Encourage them. They need to hear that. A big one is listen to their dreams. And here's a big piece. Some kids need it almost all the time. You need to remind them of those dreams. When they are doubting whether they can get through Milton Hershey School, when they are doubting why they are here, remind them of the dreams they had. We all have dreams, right? Some of them are very, very far-fetched. It's interesting, when Gary Gilliam, I went back and I looked in his senior yearbook. You know what his career aspiration was? NFL player. That was his dream, senior year. He worked towards it, 6 hard years, but he achieved his dream. But if you look through those yearbooks, there's probably 8 to 10 guys that want to be a professional athlete. That's not saying they can't do it and that we can't help them find other dreams, but don't ever squash your kid's dream, as far-fetched as it might sound. I mean, there's a great movie with Will Smith, the Never-Ending Pursuit of Happiness, I think it's called. And there's a scene in there where he's shooting baskets with his son, and his son says something about, I'm going to be an NBA star. And Will Smith gets angry at him and says, no, that's a pipe dream. You need to focus in school and everything. And his son kind of puts his head down and says something to the effect of like, yeah, you're right. But Will Smith, right then in that area, he realized he just squashed his kid's dream. Don't squash their dreams. Build them up. We do make dreams occur here. We have kids every year that go on to achieve their dreams. Your kids, there's nothing to prevent them from reaching their dreams. When times get tough, remind them. Remind them of their dreams. They need to hear that. And then lastly, I often say to parents here and families at Milton Hershey School, really your role is very much like a coach, right? Where does a coach have to stand during a game? On the sidelines, maybe all the way in the dugout. They can't be out there on the field, right? You can't be here at Milton Hershey School doing it. You can be on the sidelines like a coach that does what? Encourages them. Help give them direction. Give them a little bit of discipline when they need it, right? Give them all the tools they need, but you have to kind of let them go out and do that. Now here at Milton Hershey School, we're the field. We can be there with them. You're the coach, but you have such an impact from that sideline. And really what's important for you to know is you need to know our playbook. How many are you familiar with the handbook we send out every year? Right? How many of you take time to read through it? Great. That's the playbook, folks. That is the playbook. If you familiarize yourself with that, You're going to know the expectations. You're going to know our game plan. You can coach to it. Your kids need you. We need you. Your influence on them is so important to their success here. That's all I'm going to share. If there's anything we haven't discussed, anybody have anything that they have seen that's really been useful in their situation, I'd love to hear it and share it with the group. Or if there's any questions. Don't all speak at once. Everybody's just hungry and wants to go to lunch. Yes?
My son, he's been a straight A student his whole life.
Okay.
And this is his first year here. He started in August. So he's telling me I might have to do summer school. There's on Facebook there's a group and everyone's all confused about do the seniors have PSSAs, this, that, and other thing. So I found out that they do not have PSSAs. They have assessments and they have keystone exams.
Mm-hmm.
And if they fail on those, they have to do summer school, even if they're straight A's.
Mm-hmm.
So I just would like to share that with everyone in case someone doesn't know.
Mm-hmm.
But also, my thoughts on that are, we're struggling in English. He passed the first test. The second test, he got 56. So therefore, he's, may have to do summer school if he doesn't pass the next two. Rather than wait and see if he's going to pass, the minute that he got that 56, I was on the phone saying, let's get him tutored now.
Mm-hmm.
I would rather see him succeed first rather than fail first.
Sure.
And then succeed
Sure.
by having to struggle through that summer camp, especially his first year here.
Yeah.
When he doesn't want to be here to begin with.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So I think that's a good idea too, as soon as the teacher sees you failed this assessment test and you're a straight A student on your report card, let's get you into tutoring immediately.
Mm-hmm.
And for the teachers to take that initiative to jump right in there and say, hey, maybe that could be part of policy. If you see that a student's failed on one test and they're doing great
Mm-hmm.
and everything else, jump right in there and demand that they go to tutoring.
Right.
He was tutored before this third test. He was tutored 3 days before the test. Just those 3 days, because it took me a little while to get that going. He passed, So he's got one more unit to do to pass. So I talked to his teacher yesterday. I shouted at him all day, and I told that teacher, let's get him into tutoring right before those tests.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and what you're talking about, there's actually several issues there. When it comes to kids that come to Milton Hershey School and maybe struggling academically, especially, and we see this a lot, where a kid is doing very well in their home community, come here and struggles. I can tell you, having been a former guidance counselor in a school district, an A in one school district might not be an A in another. The expectations, which we've talked about. You brought your children to Milton Hershey School to get the best education possible. We believe we provide the best education in the country. Our goal is not also to just give them A's, but we want them to be, when they graduate Milton Hershey School, they've got the skills that they should have from a high school. That's why we do those assessments. And the other piece of the puzzle there is talking about is, frequent and early communication. And this should happen even in home community schools, where right from day one, you need to be aware that there's a possibility of summer school, because there's nothing more frustrating as a parent than finding out in May that your child might have to go to summer school. We would rather tell you there's a potential and then it never happened than it happened, last minute. But, we take our role very seriously about education. And I can tell you here at the school, you're not going to find a more committed teaching staff. I mean, we have tutoring available all the time. We're going to do whatever it takes for your son to be academically successful.
I also understand that the assessment test that he's taking now is showing his level of whether he'll be able to
Right.
do the 10th grade level.
Right.
If he can't do the 9th grade level, and passing
Right.
form, he's going to really struggle next
Right.
year in
Right.
that English course.
Right, and that's what we talk about. We don't necessarily talk about remediation going back. We call it acceleration. Let's bring them up to where they need to be.
Exactly.
Right. Good, thank you.
I just like to see that happen before they fail.
Right.
Let's get them succeed.
Right. Well, and that's why we do those assessments early.
Not all children, like you said, some, when they come here, they've already been falling behind. But his whole life, I've never had to help him with homework.
Right. Okay.
Always straight A's and PSSA's at home and
Right.
as well, and I know it's a whole different curriculum here.
Right. Well, it sounds like, at least you're in contact with the teachers, which is huge.
Oh,
Yeah, good.
I think everyone that's met me now is like, oh, you're the one sending me emails.
Yeah.
Counselors
Good, good. Any other thoughts or feedback before we wrap up? Yes?
We have a grandson that's here. He just started. He's in kindergarten. And I'm hearing you talk about, you can see it's a wide variety of grades you're addressing here. And I just couldn't be happier with getting him in at the base level where he's coming up. We did get a letter the other day that says he is going to summer school.
Mm-hmm.
Because we knew that. We could tell by his report cards.
Yeah, good.
That we have a feeling it's going to happen. And actually, I'm encouraged by it.
Good.
Because I just don't want him sliding.
Right. Yeah, and that's our goal. And again, you know, you brought your children to Milton Hershey School for this very reason. You know, like I said, here, you know, again, it's a whole thing of, you know, summer school has always had that negative connotation. You know, we try to make it look as a very positive thing. You know, I also tell the kids all the time, and families, Milton Hershey School is a great place to be in the summer. You know, I mean, where else can they go and have Hershey Park as their playground? You know, so, you know, if they have to be here for a summer or two, you know, it's not going to be misery. It's not. And, you know, and again, we all want the best for the kids. And sometimes some kids are going to need a little bit more time. It goes back to that learning. You know, the more time they are in a classroom, the more they're going to learn. Unfortunately, even at kindergarten, sometimes we need to get them caught up. We're not going to pass a kid on just because, you know, they're a great kid. We want to make sure, we owe it to you that when they graduate kindergarten, they're ready for first grade. Because we'd be doing them a disservice and you a disservice if we send them on. That might not be the case in all your home community schools, but that's not what we're about. We're about a legitimate product, you know, of when your kid graduates Milton Hershey School, they're going to be a top-notch student. I mean, you know, you can hear about 100% of our high school kids graduate high school not only with a diploma, but with career technical, at least one certification. You know, we have very high standards academically here. We're not going to back off of that at all. I mean, hopefully that's one of the main reasons you sent them here. We are, you know, our goal is to be the premier school in the country. And if we're not there now, we're going to be there. So, but thank you. Yes?
What I was going to ask is there a core group of, does Milton Hershey have like any core group of sponsors that volunteer? Like maybe she has a talent in something like music that maybe one of the music departments could use, or maybe he's an education major that he could volunteer somewhere. How come sponsors aren't being tapped to assist in the school?
It's a great question about, you know, how can we tap into the sponsors? Two things. One of the things is with President Gert's new strategic plan, that family engagement piece is something we're really developing. In fact, right now we're developing a whole program, and that is a piece of the puzzle that we want to. The other piece of that puzzle, quite honestly, is a security of children. Any person that volunteers at Milton Hershey School has to go through a full background check. So, you know, so that would be some ideal down the road, but logistically right now it's not something we can put in place. But that is our goal, is, you know, how can we tap into, you know, the things out there. But, you know, what we look at right now is it'd be great if people came to our Spartan Family Network meetings, you know, and share. And, you know, maybe you can't necessarily impact the daily schedule with the kids, but you might be able to serve as a great mentor to another parent sponsor who's new. And that's one of the things we're trying to develop right now, is a mentor program, sponsor to sponsor. That, you know, that's where I think you as sponsors, especially experienced ones, that's where you're going to be huge. Is, you know, when I've got this new mom who's really struggling having her kid here, I can say, hey, don't worry, I got someone you need to talk to. And I'm going to call you and say, can you call this person, or can you meet with them, especially if they're in your home community. But no, I mean, trust me, I don't know how long you've been at the school. We've made some great strides in engaging families. I mean, family weekends, how many of you have been here a couple years at least? So you know, I mean, family weekends have changed a lot, right? Yeah. We had 140 people at our Spartan Family Network meeting last night. That's the second family weekend in a row where we've gotten over 125. If you came to them in years past, we might have gotten 20 or 30. So whatever it is, we're going to continue to build on that. Yes?
Let me ask you this now. If you have your clearances like right at this moment,
yeah,
because you have that 3 clearances, are you able to volunteer in the school at all?
Not right now. That is not something. We don't really necessarily have community volunteers because we are so blessed with having so many staff and everything, but it is something we could certainly look to. And, you know, I can tell you, I mean, your children's safety is our #1 priority here. I mean, we even have systems in place where if I was to switch jobs from my current job to another job, I have to go through a whole new background check. So anytime that the school's getting opportunities, so yeah, I mean, that is our number one, is the vigilance around safety. So we're going to wrap up here. I'll be available for questions afterwards, but I do want to thank you all because I know you got lunch and we got other presentations going on at 12:30. Have a great weekend. Hey, most importantly, what do you got to do tonight? Set them forward. Don't bring your kids back late tomorrow because you forgot to set your clocks ahead an hour. Okay, thank you.